So the story really is more like a dream. It doesn't really have a sense of easy believability like some of the stories of he goes out fishing and they catch a whole bunch of fish, or he's walking through a crowd and somebody, is tugging on his cloak, or, the little boy brings some fish over to him, and, that was unbelievable, but, we could make up our own endings to those stories. But here's the story about him and his buddies, and they go on a hike up a hill, kind of nice little retreat. And they get up on this mountain, and he glows like a gazillion Christmas lights are wrapped around him, and he's aglow. And the next thing he knows, his 3 followers see him talking to 3 really big of the biggies, the biggest of the biggies, Elijah and Moses. And you got to wonder, how do they recognize Elijah and Moses, since there really aren't any posters of Elijah and Moses hanging around in the temples? But anyway, they know they're Elijah and Moses, and he's talking to them. And of course they're terrified. I mean, I can't imagine anything other than being terrified. So I don't know if they hear what's being said, but just him glowing would have been enough. But the vision of him standing there in conversation with these 2 other people, and so it's all got to feel rather surreal. And then so Peter, in typical Peter fashion, like shouts out, "Hey, let's build some shrines so we can remember this moment where we are." And, Peter's got a lot of making up to do, because this scripture passage starts with, 6 days after. 6 days after what? So the geeks of us, go back into chapter 8 and read 6 days after what? Well, he's just gotten in trouble. He's always getting in trouble. He's this really kind of cool guy who speaks before he thinks. And so Jesus says, "Who do the people say I am?" And Peter says, "You're the Messiah." And he goes, "Woo, yay, Peter." And then, but Jesus is trying to prepare them. Because he has to prepare them. That's his job. Every good teacher has to prepare their students. Whether you're preparing them for a test, you're preparing them for the end of the semester, you're preparing them for the end of the school year, moving forward to, high school or college, you got to get them ready. And so Jesus is preparing them for when he's going to leave. And so he's, talking about, there's going to be this time, and he's, gonna die. And Peter says, no, don't be telling them that, because, once you start telling the crowds that, you're gonna get beat up and you're gonna die, the crowds are gonna die down. You're not gonna have this great following. You're not gonna be, all this charismatic leader. And so Jesus yells at Peter, and he says, "Get behind me, Satan." So, he doesn't have this great standing. And so, Peter's kind of sheepish for a little while, and they, so 6 days after getting yelled at by his teacher, he gets invited to go up the mountain. So of course he wants to do something great. I didn't get in trouble much when I was a kid in school because I was terrified. I was one of those because I didn't want to get in trouble. But, just the thought of getting in trouble kept me well behaved. But, it just, when I watched my friends get in trouble, it was just like this thing. And so I would imagine that getting in trouble would make you want to do something really great to be in your teacher's good standing again. So that's what he's doing. He's saying, I'll just build some monuments. So as soon as these words come out of his mouth, the next thing that happens is this booming voice that comes out of the heavens, and it says, "This is my son, the beloved, listen to him." And then it gets quiet. Jesus not shining anymore. Elijah's gone, Moses is gone, no more clouds, no more excitement. I'm not saying they're not terrified anymore, because I'm not sure that makes you more comfortable, less comfortable. I'm just sure I can't. This is a pretty amazing experience. Number one, After mountain climbing, I don't know about the rest of you, even when I was in my best shape, when I was in my early 20s, there was a certain amount of physical exertion. And so there's all that kind of adrenaline-y kind of thing. So, there's all of that going on in addition to this surreal, dreamlike, who knows what, hallucinatory experience. And so then you hear the voice booming from heaven. But what God said was, "This is my son, the beloved, listen to him." And the next words that are really happening are words that are often really not paid a whole lot of attention to. But we should. Because what Jesus, then they start going down the mountain. And what Jesus says is, don't tell anybody about this. And I asked the kids, wouldn't you want to tell your friends? And of course they'd want to tell their friends. You'd want to tell your friends. You'd probably tell your friends even if your teacher said, don't tell your friends. But anyway, that's another story. But, you're going to want to tell your friends. But he says, don't tell anybody about this until the Son of Man has been raised from the dead. So here in this very moment, in this very crucial, crazy, out of body, out of mind experience, there is this assurance of what's coming. And that's what's happening for us too. Because in 3 days, we're going to be upon Ash Wednesday. And Ash Wednesday begins for us in our Christian understanding, the beginning of the Lenten journey. And you'll come, I pray and I hope, and you'll have ashes put upon your head. And the way we do it here, you'll also receive communion for fortification for the journey. But you'll have ashes put on your head, and you'll be reminded that, from the very earth, the creation, from ashes you come, and to ashes you will return. But from this very solemn beginning, we have a promise. We know where we're going. We're going to the cross, but we're also going beyond the cross. Because what Jesus says is, don't say anything until the Son of Man has been raised. So it's not just that we're traveling to the cross. We're traveling to the resurrection. So he's given us that light at the end of the tunnel that we're going to need if we're going to take this Lenten journey seriously. And I'm inviting us to take this Lenten journey seriously. Several of the members of the leadership team and the stewardship team have been in conversation about, how to, continuing the conversation about us being good stewards. And I had said from last fall, I really want us to be thinking of us being in the stewardship of all God's creation in 2018. And the first place we've got to start is with the stewardship of our lives. We've got to take good care of ourselves, folks, because the first and greatest gift that God has given us is the gift of our life. And that is mind, body, and spirit. And so we have this opportunity as we enter into this Lenten season to come before God and say, I'm going to journey with Jesus to the cross. But I trust in this dream that only God could dream. Only the creator and master of the universe could dream that one could die and be raised again. Only we as Christians could dream that the people who have gone on before us will be seen again by us because they too will experience the joy of resurrection living. Only we can dream to see those people who have life eternal. We have that hope. We have that dream. We have that promise in a life that is life after life. That is why we come, to be reminded of the God who loves us, who calls us beloved, who is still speaking into our lives so that we don't forget. Because if God stops speaking, we might forget how beloved we are, how cherished we are, how chosen we are. You are the beloved children of God, and God is speaking. But just as Jesus brought them up the mountain, give them a little respite, kind of regroup, had that little bit of fussiness 6 days before, kind of felt that little separation because, you were saying no and I'm saying yes. Sometimes we're going to get like that. We need to retreat. We need to refresh. We need to renew. We're going to need that. But so we need to listen to God. And we need to answer God's call. But we also need to follow. So let us follow the one who is going to show us the way to that cross, who has promised us that on the other side is resurrection. May all the glory be to God. Amen.